I think all of you were present for the welcome ceremonies this morning. I think you will agree that that was a very proud moment for Fiji. Those photographs that you took being shown in Bolivia right now on national television, and the G77 has relayed photographs back that are being looked at by the international community in New York. It's a very proud day for Fiji out there, and particularly like to thank the RFMF for the fantastic ceremony which they did, the 100-man Guard of Honor plus the Vengaravi Vavanua. I think made all of us very proud to be Fijians. So that was a great start to the meeting, and I think you also would have been inspired by the President of Bolivia and the passion and commitment that he has shown in the South-South cooperation, from sparing time to come all the way from the continent of Latin America to fly down here to be part of these opening ceremonies. As you know, he was our guest of honor. He did say in that speech, this is the first time that a head of state from Bolivia has visited Fiji, or indeed the Oceania area, so it's a historic day. So you were all part of that. What you weren't part of was the first session of the panel, and that got underway on time. And as you know, the first session was all about developing a vision and policy options in key areas of strategic interest and importance to South-South cooperation, the principles, the critical challenges, and proposed actions. So I'm sure you've all got a copy of the program that's summarized in there. Since this was the first session, what happened in there was that all of the panelists basically made their opening addresses, and each of them got a chance to speak. Most of them were speaking from the heart rather than from prepared statements. So it promises to be a very useful session. People have come here with the idea of exchanging ideas and working out some really good recommendations. So it was a very encouraging session. You're probably looking for a little bit more than that, so let me tell you what I've got here from my notes. I think President of Bolivia, he spoke for an extended period, and of course he speaks in Spanish, but we had Spanish translators in there. And what I had from my notes, one of the things that I would share with you is that we in the South, and all of you would be familiar with that terminology, the South, referring to the developing countries as opposed to the developed countries, which are mainly in the North. When we talk about South, we mean developing countries, whether they're in the Southern or Northern Hemisphere. So he was saying that we, the South, have differences with the developed countries of the North. And their economic models and systems and programs don't think about the welfare of the poorest people, whereas we in the South, because they're such a major part of our populations, have to give priority to that. So his point was that we have to make our own processes here in the South for dealing with poverty. We can't follow what's been done in the North. That model will not work for us. We have to do our own. So he was talking about what they're doing in Bolivia to do that. Some very impressive figures coming out of his statement. But he wants us all to work in solidarity in the South, so that it's not just one country making progress, that we all make progress together. Another point that he made very strongly is that basic services are a human right. So all the things that a lot of people take for granted, water, electricity, education, telecommunications, all those basic services should be categorized as a human right. They're not a privilege that only a few get to share. Another point that he made very strongly was that the banks cannot decide the destiny of the people, that people are above banks. And of course, what he's referring to there are mainly the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, and so on. His point being that as we shape the new development agenda for the world, it can't be just about what financial institutions want. It has to be about what the people need. If you think in those terms of, basic services or human rights, then we have to keep that in the forefront of our mind. So that was his other point of importance. The president of Kiribati also spoke at length, and as was forecasted by one of you yesterday, he did speak in great detail about climate change and how this is the greatest challenge before humanity in the 21st century. He also spoke very strongly about natural resources, and he gave as an example the tuna resource of the Pacific Ocean. The fact that the Pacific Island countries get very little return, only 5% return historically on the tuna catch from our waters, and that we have to band together as countries of the South to stop this kind of overexploitation of the tuna resource, number one, but secondly, very low returns being given to the Pacific Island countries from that tuna catch. He also spoke, and this is a head of state coming from a country that is under threat from rising sea levels. He spoke about the need for balance in development, and that what we're designing here at this meeting, we need to remember balance at all times. Social conditions balanced with environmental conditions, balanced with development. The Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands also spoke very passionately along similar lines to what I've just described. But he also said we must use this meeting here at Natadola to make South-South cooperation more viable. We must have equity, is the main point that he wanted to make, is there has to be equity in the new programs to come out of this meeting and South-South cooperation. Even if it means that we have to change international laws, he said, we should. He also said that we still need to have North-South cooperation as well, because the North must correct the things that they have done in the past. President Fernandez from Dominican Republic spoke eloquently about the financial crisis and the fact that the way out of the crisis is not about austerity. We have to find a solution that promotes employment. It's not about just spending less. And we need a model that which will combine society and social goals along with government programs and control. So we need to find new criteria with social principles at their center. Papua New Guinea spoke very strongly about cooperation, and I think all of you have got a story there from 3 weeks ago about Fiji, Papua New Guinea cooperation. I mean, that's a great example of how South-South cooperation is taking off in our region, in the Melanesian region. We can see it happening in a way that we've never seen it before. Suddenly, we've got cross-investment between the two countries, labor markets and so on, opening up the labor markets. We had a very good address by the Prime Minister of Vanuatu on climate change, and addresses from Dr. Babatunde, the Executive Director of UNFPA. And I think the quotable quote from him there is that we, in this new development agenda, must be people-centered, and that women and girls are the most important ones. They are half the world, and they are responsible for the other half. And we all know that when times get tough, it is women and girls who are the victims. So UNFPA is ready to support the G77 in addressing the vulnerability of women and girls. Dr. Hazer from SCAP, she made many very good points, but if I can just give you one. In driving our new development agenda, we must invest in our people. We have to address the issue of inequalities. many of us in this world overconsume, but there are also a great number who underconsume. So we really need to focus on that. She also gave a very encouraging figure where she said that South-South trade now accounts for 1/3 of all world trade. Now that is up from only, it was only at 10% 20 years ago, South-South trade. It's gone from 10% up to 33%. So you can see the trend of where the world is going. The world order is changing, and G77 has a very important part to play in designing that change. Ambassador Ash from Antigua and Barbuda, the incoming President of the General Assembly, he gave a number of commitments in the meeting during his time as President of the General Assembly, which starts in September, that he would put the design of the post-2015 development agenda at the very center of his work. So I think that is probably what we're going to be focusing on over the next couple of days, this post-2015 development agenda, which we are designing this year and next year, which will be looking after the development program of the global community for the next 15 years. So it's a very important time for G77 and the developing countries to take a very serious role, probably the controlling role, in the design of the goals for the post-2015 development agenda. So that'll be overshadowing all our work this afternoon and tomorrow on this South-South cooperation stuff that we're talking about.